Hello all. So, we were learning about conditional tenses. We have completed type 1 and now we were learning about type 2. Now we were about to learn the variations of the type 2 in conditional sentence. Fine. So, now let us understand the variations. So, about type 2 when we are talking, fine, type 2 we have already understood that it is improbable condition, fine. Type 2 is improbable condition and we need to take care is if the clause indicates unreality or improbability, fine. That is again when the past tense in the if clause, fine, we mainly need to take care of in the conditional clause or the if clause, fine, is not a true part. So, again this part we would remember. I hope you people remember that we had continued with this like we had studied in the previous class, and now that we are understanding it further, the verb in the if clause is in the past tense. So, again this is in type 2 what mainly we need to take care of is if clause, fine, past tense, fine, this is first thing, and the main clause is the conditional tense, fine, is the conditional tense. That is specially we need to understand is would, it would have would plus infinitive and again the first form of the verb, fine. This specially we need to understand. We have already learnt about this. This is now again I am repeating it so that now we understand. We are going to learn about the variables. So, we have already learned this, we need to understand this. So, what are the variables? Because this is the rule that we know, this has to be followed in type 2, fine. What past tense, again if clause is in past tense and the main clause is the conditional tense. It could change as per the requirement, as per the situation, but again what we would follow is would with infinitive and the first form of the verb, fine. And now that we are going to understand, yes, another important point that we had to remember, an important point that we need to remember about the type 2, fine, this is the second one, as there are 3 types, this is the second one, and the important point that we need to remember is the type 2 conditional sentences are used when we do not expect the action in the if clause to take place. Mainly this thing we need to remember. What? It is the type 2 conditional sentences are used when we do not expect, main point is we do not expect the action in the if clause. We do not expect action, the action in the if clause to take place. How again? So, we know, we have understood about this. This is one important point that we need to remember. and we have already discussed about this. So, now let us understand the variations. Fine. when we are talking about the variations. Fine. So, when the variations are, see, we have variations both in main clause and even the if clause. So, first let us understand, like even in type 1 we had variations in both the main clause and the if clause. So, now let us understand for the main clause. Fine, for main clause when we are understanding A, if plus past tense plus might, again over here might is possibility, we are talking about is the possibility. So, how would we do it? If plus past tense plus might, the possibility. So, let us understand it how. Fine, let us go for the example. With example, I think understanding becomes better. If you tried again, had, you might win. So, again we know what was the conditions for type 2. Again when we are looking at the variations, this one is what varies here, the possibility part. If plus past tense plus, the first type is if the past tense plus might, the possibility. Fine. So, if you tried again, if you had, like if you tried again, had, you might win. So, they are like if you had tried again, might be you should have won, but because you did not try again, might be you did not win. So, again this is talking about the possibility. Fine. And the first thing, the variation, that is this part which would take place. Second one, second variation that would go is if plus past tense plus could. Again this could is for ability. So, again could or might can be used for different things. So, again their variations accordingly are changed, are varied, and so accordingly the meaning could even change and vary. So, that is how we are talking about the variations even. Now, let me take example for this so that you can understand it in a better manner. So, if it is okay, if they were stronger, they could lift the table. So, again how we are able to understand, if they were, so again it is past tense, if they were stronger. So, it is not about the present, this thing that they are talking. So, again if they were stronger, they could. So, again the ability is they could have lifted the table. So, it is talking over here, could is talking about the ability. It is like doubting someone's ability, it is talking about the ability. Fine. So, if they were stronger, they could lift the table. Fine. Next, or let me give you one more example for this. He could buy a new car if he had enough money. So, again see, he could buy, his ability to buy could be only if he had enough money, otherwise there is no possibility. Fine. So, again this is talking about the ability to buy was if he could buy only if he had enough money. Fine. So, next when we are going, the next point is if plus past tense plus past tense. Again we need to understand this very well so that there is no confusion, like in type 1 when we saw it was if plus present tense plus present tense. Now we are coming with if plus past tense plus past tense. So let me give you the example for this. Okay, if anyone interrupted him, he got angry. So if anyone interrupted him, in that condition he used to get he got angry. So again it is past tense plus past tense. If anyone interrupted, if it was interrupts, that is present, but again if anyone interrupted him, he got angry. Let me give another example even so that your concept can be clear. If there was an scarcity of water, the crops failed. Okay, so again over here the past tense, if there was an scarcity of water, that time due to the scarcity of water the crops failed. Again in the past what happened? It is talking about the same thing, and so both past tense plus past tense, if plus past tense plus past tense. So conditional sentence, fine, again the variations happen is this way for type 2. Now let us understand variations in if clause. Again variations if clause, fine. So now we are understanding the variation in if clause. So we need to first know is if plus past continuous tense. So when we are talking about if plus past continuous tense, it says it had been happening and it is yet continuing, it is in a continuous process. So it is past, it was for a long time that it went on, it was in a continuous process for a long time, fine. So how we would give, let us talk, let us take example to understand this concept. Okay, if you were coding on as love, you would need more time. So when we are talking here, if you were coding on love, fine, if you were coding on love, you would need more time. So it is past continuous, from past a person is continuously trying, and it is like even now that you would need more time, fine, for your love you will need more time. So it can be sure of, fine. Or even let me give you a better example, let me give you one more example so that all can understand it. Okay, if my car was working, he would be, okay fine, if my car was working, I would find you, yes, let me take, I would find you up from the airport, up from the airport. So again when we are talking it, if my car was working, fine, if my car was working, fine, I would find you up from the airport. So it is in a continuous tense, if my car was working, I would find you up from the airport, fine, it is talking about the past continuous tense, fine. So it is talking about the past continuous activity. Now let us take another point. What we again need to take care is if plus past perfect. So when we talk about past perfect, it is something which is perfectly done in the past, fine, and it is over. So when we are talking, suppose example let me take, if he had taken my advice, he would be an engineer now. So, now he is something else, but if he had taken my advice, he would be an engineer. If he had taken my advice, he would have been an engineer, but now he is something else. So, it is past perfect, it is done, completed. He is something else now, he is not an engineer. So, in such situation even, fine. So, again when we are talking about the variations, fine, for the second type, and if for if clause, fine, these are the 2 points that we need to take care of and keep in mind. Now, let us understand type 3. Now, let us talk about type 3. Fine, when we are talking about type 3, it is impossible condition. It is impossible condition that we need to take care of. This is one important point that we will remember. It is impossible condition. And so, now what are the points, what is one main thing that we need to remember in this? Like we said, the tense pair are different in all the 3 types. So, now let us understand in this what is it. Fine. So, first thing that we need to take care of is the action in the if clause. Fine. The action in the if clause does not happen as the time is past and the condition cannot be fulfilled. So, what do we first understand? The action in the if clause does not happen as the time is in the past. So, please understand the first point. The action in the if clause does not happen as the time is in the past and the condition cannot be fulfilled. Fine. So, with examples we would learn this in detail in better way, but now next the verb in the if clause is in past perfect tense. So, now the third pair is the verb in the if clause is past perfect tense, fine, and the main clause, yes, and the main clause has perfect conditional tense, has perfect conditional tense, that is in the main clause, fine. That is could plus have plus past participle and okay, now let me, I think this is not a sufficient place here. So, let me make you understand it over here, fine. Yes. So, let us understand for this perfect conditional tense, how would it be? Could plus have plus past participle and the third form of the verb. So, in this case we would remember is, fine, in this case we would remember is how the pairing is. For if clause it is past perfect tense, fine, and for the main clause it is perfect conditional tense. Perfect conditional tense would be could plus have plus past participle and the third form of the verb. So, what is the conditional tense that would follow? Would follow is could plus have plus past participle. Any past participle can be used, and the third form of the verb, the third form. How? Let us understand with the example. Let me give you the example so you can have a better understanding in this. Suppose if they have been stronger, they would have lifted the table. So, when we are understanding this, fine. So, see this, the way it is giving. If they have been stronger, fine. If they have been stronger, fine. They would have lifted the table. Again, they would have lifted the table. When it is giving, we have this could, like could, would, and those things that we use. They would have, could have, would have, that is one thing which would be again the variable part. Fine. Have, past participle, lifted, fine. The third, lift, lifted, fine. Such when we are looking at the third this thing, lifted the table. So, please understand this point when we are going through this, these things would be followed in the third type, so that the understanding is more clear into the concept that how things work. So, we need to follow it accordingly. So, we would be taking care of is, first thing, the action in the if clause does not happen as time is passed and the condition cannot be fulfilled. So, even now when we are looking, fine, the action does not happen. So, over here when we see, they would have lifted, they did not lift, so action did not happen. So, this thing I want you to understand is that this point it is taking care of. The action in the if clause does not happen as the time in the past and the condition cannot be fulfilled. Fine. So, if they had been stronger, they would have lifted the table, but it did not happen. As it is already told, it would not happen. So, that point would be taken care of. Fine. Next, when we are looking at, we have understood even with the example. So, now let us proceed further. So, yes, when we are proceeding further, so let us understand one more point in this, that is an important point that we would take care of, that is if he had listed more carefully, he would have made so many, yes, made so many mistakes. Please again understand this, it is very important to understand, because if he had listed more carefully, if should have looked into the thing more carefully, he would have made so many mistakes again. So, again this is as the conditions told here, it is accordingly going, and there could be a confusion in this. So, please read, understand carefully so that it does not create any confusion. Now, again when we are learning as, let us understand the variations. Fine, when variations again that we need to take care of and look into, let us first look into the variation of main clause. We are looking into the variation of the main clause. First, when we are looking into it, A, if plus past perfect plus could. Again this could is talking about the ability. So, please let us keep this in mind. The first variation point that we would be looking at is if plus past perfect plus could, and this could would represent the ability. What would be the variations? Let's look, and again let us understand with the example. Okay, if they had been stronger, they could have lifted the table. So, about this sentence, when we have taken example for all the different variations that we have understood, fine. I hope now the concept is clear for you people. Here when it is talking about if they had been stronger, it is again past perfect, if they had been stronger, fine. They could have lifted the table, fine, they could have lifted the table, their ability speaks accordingly. If they had been stronger, they could have lifted the table. Fine, this thing, I think it is matching the first point that it is talking about. If, past perfect and could, the ability is already spoken here. Next, okay, let me give you one more example. Okay, if it had rained, we could have played tennis yesterday. So, again please understand all the 3 points matching here. If it had rained, again the condition, if it had rained, as it is a conditional sentence, we could have played tennis yesterday. Again the same thing, past perfect it is, we could have played, fine. So, again please take care of these points. Now, B, when we are talking about if plus past perfect plus might, again this might is used and showing the ability. So, again there should not be a confusion, because could, would and that things are even used for ability, may, might and all, even that is used for ability. How? Let me give you an example. If they had known the answer, they might have told me. So, again please understand this, if they had known the answer, find the past perfect and might and this thing, they might have told me, fine, it is clear, I think this is easily understood. Ability, again what was the capability? Ability is if they had known the answer. The ability of a person is if the person should have known, might have told me, fine. Then I think one example is enough, or you want, let me give one more. Fine, if we had found him earlier, we might have taken him to the hospital. So, again I think it is clearly understood, if we had found him earlier, fine, it is the same point taken care of. If, past perfect and might, ability, if we had found him earlier, we might have taken him to the hospital. It is clearly understood, which is already done, there are no chances now. So, it is past perfect, understood. So, I hope these points on main clause variations are clear. Now, let us understand for if clause. Again one point that we need to note, please note, this is very important, we need to note this, that conditional tenses are of two types. This is again very important to know. So, sharing it with you guys, please understand it, it is very important. Of two types, A, the present conditional tenses structure, how would it be? Fine, this first point that we would take care of, the present conditional tenses structure, how would it be? Please understand this, so that you can understand the conditional tenses as it is used again and again into type 2, type 3, fine. So, at least let your concept on conditional tenses be clear, fine. So, first thing is that we would take care is of the A part, the present conditional tenses, the structure, first one person, the first person, for the first person again would or should plus infinitive, fine. And so this is first person, or let me make it like this so that it is understood better. First person, fine, would, should plus infinitive, and when we are talking about other person, it would be would plus infinitive, fine. So, we would take would plus infinitive, and to understand it, let me give an example. For the first one is I would read, fine. This is for the first person. Now, for the third person or the other person, you would read, etc. You could give it, because you are not sure about the the other person, fine. You would read and etc. you could give it because you are not sure. So, this again we can take it this way. Now, again in this, the B that we have, it is the perfect conditional tense, the perfect conditional tense. So, please let us understand this well, and it would be would, should plus perfect infinitive. When we are understanding this, fine, let us understand with the example. He would have reached, or let us take another example, you would have studied, or yes, you would have studied, fine. These are the examples for it, fine. So, I hope it is clearly understood. I hope this point is clearly understood. Now, guys, please understand, as I was telling you, need to understand one thing very importantly, but before that I wanted to make you understand this part clearly. The next main important point that you need to take care of is, please understand, the combination of type 2 and 3 is possible, fine. So, again for this conditional tenses, one more point that we need to note and remember is the combination of type 2 and 3 is possible. This is one important point that we need to take care of, but we cannot combine type 1 with type 2 and type 3, nothing, one cannot combine with any one. It is only type 2 and 3 that can combine as per the requirement. Let me give you an example for this. If they were stronger, they could have lifted the table. We have studied in type 1, type 2 are different examples, but now again this can be combined. This could be one. If they were stronger, they could have lifted the table. So, now understand how the combination of 2 and 3 has happened. Understanding, because we have already learnt about type 1, type 2, type 3. So, now understand it and realize it, how the changes have taken place. Fine. So, this is again one important thing that we need to remember about the types. Fine. So, I hope we have understood it in a better manner. Fine. So, now when we understand there are in conditional sentences, now let us give to conclusion, or let us end it up. Conditional sentences, when we are taking care of this thing, again there are 3 types, fine. So, conditional tenses, what are they? We already know, they express the hypothetical situation, and their consequences, that in such condition what could happen, what has happened. So, this accordingly goes, fine, and they are in 3 types. and each type we have understood what are the details, and in each type we have understood the variations, variations for the main clause, variations for the if clauses too. Fine. So, now I think we are really done with understanding of the conditional sentences. We call them conditional sentences because there are some conditions. Then the normal sentence is going, they come with the if clauses. This is one very important point that we all would remember. So, I hope we have understood well now the conditional clause, conditional sentences, and would not have confusion on this. We have understood all the types and the variations of all the types, what would come. So, it would be a real good learning and understanding. So, please go through it and understand it better. Thank you and have a great day.